Well, hello, retro game players. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Marcus. I wanted to talk to you guys about my experience at PRGE 2019 and really the pros and cons of being a vendor, and also pretty much why I'm not going to be doing it again next year as far as being a vendor. Now, this was my fourth time as a vendor. I've been going to PRGE, I think this was my eighth time just going, but my fourth time as a vendor. And so a lot of the cons here only apply to if you're going to run a booth and be by yourself, okay? Because that's what I do. I do have some friends that would stop by and help out and relieve me, but I'll explain why that's not 100% awesome at times. But yeah, basically PRGE is awesome. If you ever want to go check out the largest expo of its kind, it's really cool. When I lived in Portland, it was a lot more convenient for me because, you know, I'd just be able to go home at night. So now that I'm about 2 hours away, I have to get a hotel and all that stuff. So let's jump into the pros and cons of why being a vendor at PRGE or any other gaming convention might be something you want to consider. Okay, so a really high pro of the show, in fact, it's the highest one that I can think of, is that I get to see friends of mine who I don't get to see very often because we don't live near each other. So that's not only people that go to the expo every year, but it's event organizers, it's the volunteers, it's everybody at PRGE and just kind of in this Northwest gaming community. Like, it's great to see repeat people go every year and come by my booth and recognize me and just be like, oh, dude, you know, last year I got this from you and it's such a great game or whatever, you know. So I really enjoy catching up with friends, seeing people. That's like the main reason why I like to go. So to me, that's one of the biggest pros that you can possibly have. So with that said, keep that in mind, because that's honestly, I mean, that's always going to trump everything. Like, I'm always going to go just based on catching up with people. Next up would be a con, and a con of doing this, especially yourself, and one reason why I'm not going to be doing it again is because of the amount of time it takes for me to get ready. So I have to price all my games. I try and price everything as fair as I can be. So as an example, I usually go to like either price charting or eBay sold, and I just find an average, and then I target underneath that. I try and put the price underneath it. And then also, whenever somebody wants to buy something from me, I'm 100% cool with haggling. I will always haggle with someone or come down in price. I love to give people deals. What I'm selling at my booth is always duplicates of my collection. Not always, but most of the time. Sometimes I thin stuff out, you know, but generally speaking, it's all duplicates from my collection. So this is back when I was in Portland, and I would go on Craigslist and swap meets and find vendors and garage sales and buy like huge Atari lots, big Nintendo lots. I mean, I've been, you know, doing that alone. I'm nervous to say 20 years because it sounds like I'm really old, but anyway, a long time. So some of the stuff I've accumulated, and it's just huge. It's a huge amount of crap. Anyway, so pricing all that stuff out is so time consuming. It took weeks every night after work, just like pricing and doing that around all my other stuff that I do. It was brutal. And then loading up is always insane. Driving 2 hours, all of that, unloading, setting up my booth. I got there Friday at like, I think it was 3:30. I didn't finish till 10 p.m. and that's when they kick you out of the vendor hall. Now the arcade is continuing, like that's happening on Friday. You can go to the free play arcade. I didn't even get a chance because I was so tired after loading up on Friday, driving there, unloading, and then building my booth, you know, till 10 p.m. So doing it yourself and all the time is sort of the big theme of a con, you know, as far as why you would want to have help, you know. So another pro, okay, is going to be making money. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it does become somewhat profitable in that sense. And it's nice to be able to sell things and just get some cash, you know. and I was impressed this year with how much stuff I sold, which was, I think, not higher than average, but definitely one of the busiest years. I was really blown away with how many people showed up, especially on Saturday. So making the cash was great. I will never say that's horrible, you know. It's nice to get some of that recouped cost from when I buy lots, you know, and spend a lot of money, and just to be able to do that. So yeah, anyway, that's a really good perk. Okay, another con is running the booth by yourself. Now, I do have friends that would kind of help me and relieve me for a few moments while I could go to the bathroom and relieve myself. So Kevin from Happy Beard Games, Reggie, Jared, his awesome cousin Nathan, my friend Ian. You guys are all very cool, and thank you, you know, for helping, because they would just like watch the booth while I go off. The issue is that I always feel like they're not going to know my inventory like I do. So if someone has a question about something, I can explain, oh yeah, that's whatever. This is the story behind this, and this is, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, some of the stuff that I sold was particular weird things. Like I had a Mac Plus with like, I don't know, 28 games, and like just describing like what, you know, that all is. And anyway, all that stuff, it kind of reminds me of if you're double parked on a busy street with your hazards on, you leave your car unattended, and then you're doing whatever you're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, my car's probably okay. But on the flip side, I mean, yeah, you want to get back to your car ASAP. So that's how I feel. Like I can't really relax. Like I want to go and just kick back, enjoy the show, find deals myself. I actually brought my Genesis and Sega CDs, like what I'm trying to finish for my sets, you know, my lists, and I didn't get anything on there. I didn't get any games for myself, so I didn't have any chance to do that. I also put up a sign that I would trade for Sega Genesis and Sega CD. No one traded me anything, so I don't think my sign was big enough. I probably could have made that huge. So anyway, that's a big con, is like running the whole thing by yourself. It can be really challenging, just draining. You don't get to explore. All right, so another pro, and this is, I think, going to be a pretty cool one, is show exclusives or games that are like kind of just printed for the show. So I've got a few here. So these are like different ones. This is from Cowlitz. This is Tortoises. It's an NES cart. So this is an example of one that, you know, would just be a show exclusive. And they only print like 50 or something. And so it's kind of cool to, you know, get those if you're into that kind of thing. I don't always get all of them. Like this year there was a baby Pac-Man for the Atari 7800, and I didn't pick that up. I'm not a big 7800 collector, so I don't really care. All right, another show exclusive would have been from 2016. This is Police Knots. This is only 20 of these were made, and it's made by this awesome guy Kay, which he goes by Murder of Crows. But this is the English translation for Police Knots on the Sega Saturn, and he just did an awesome job. Like it's so well done. The discs look amazing. I remember when he was making this, he was like freaking out, like printing it, trying to get them all finished at his booth. And anyway, so that was something I remember like really waiting to get. And I got that, yeah, in 2016. This is 8 of 20. This year, this is not a show exclusive, but this was just a cool NES cart that is called Nebs and Debs. And this was one that was just, I don't know, this is the clear cart, I think. And so anyway, I'm excited to check this one out. It's kind of just a retro style NES one. Now, I don't think this is a show exclusive, but they sold it there, you know. Now this is, I guess, somewhat controversial, but I'll explain kind of like my background with this game and stuff. So, Revenge of the Bird King. So this was interesting because as I was setting up on Friday, I noticed Limited Run. They had a booth kind of by the bathrooms, right? So it was easy for me to find. Because as you walk by, it's like, oh, Limited Run. They had like an arcade that they kind of built. Well, if you guys have been watching the channel, I always talk about Limited Run games because I like having physical releases of indie games, you know? Like that's like kind of what all those top 10 videos are. They're always physical releases. So I like some of those publishers, like, you know, Strictly Limited is awesome. Special Reserve is awesome. Now, Limited Run has never given me anything to review or anything like that. They're way too big. But I always try and get games that are interesting from Limited Run. So I went by there and I asked them as I was setting up, hey, do you guys have any show exclusives? And they said that they didn't really have it exclusive, but they had a release that was coming up the next morning, right at 9, it would go on sale. And it was Revenge of the Bird King, right? So I'm like, well, crap. All right, well, I'm going to check in the morning. So in the morning, and by the way, I didn't really know any backstory on this or any of the other weirdness that's going on with it. But I went the next morning at 8:30. I stopped by the booth and I asked them, I was like, hey, are you guys selling this yet? And there was basically, they're like, no, but if you want to come here right at 9, then we'll be selling it then. And I had heard that there was only like 45 copies of this thing, so it wasn't very many copies. Well, at 8:59, when you're starting at the expo, it basically, like, the DJ comes on and they're like, all right, 5-minute warning till people come in and all this stuff. And at that time, from when, they say it's 9 o'clock, the people that come in, it takes a little bit for them to trickle in, But what I did was I didn't have any help, so I just left my booth literally at 8:58, walked over to the limited run area, and there was already a line. There was already a line formed around the booth. So I got in line, and I was actually behind John Hancock. Reggie was already up ahead because he had gotten there early, so he was like up ahead. But anyway, everyone was like nervous. Are we going to get enough? Because there was like 30 something people ahead of me, right? So anyway, by the time I got up, the game was $60, which I thought was expensive, but I was like, well, whatever. I've been waiting in line. So I bought it. And then as I looked at the back, this is where I thought it was cool, is it says defend Gun World and fight your way through a tale, behind time and space in this remix of Super Gun World 2. And so that's where I was like, holy shit, dude, I've covered Gun World 2 in one of my top 10 action platformer videos, which I'll link to. And I think it was like number 8 on that list. And I loved that game. I was like so impressed. So anyway, when I saw that, I actually talked to the guy, Joe, and I was like, dude, I loved Gun World 2. And he was like so genuine. He was so genuine. He was like, dude, that's my game. I made that game. You loved it? And I was like, I fucking loved that game, dude. Like, I talked about it in my video. I'm like, the music's amazing. And anyway, I really didn't realize how crazy this was as far as the release and all the stuff. He only brought 45 copies. So when I got up and got my copy, there was maybe like 10 left. And there was people behind me too. Not that many people. And I had heard that everybody in line basically got one. And I think 3 people from outside got one. So it sold out really fast. I'm thinking he probably, maybe, I don't know, could have brought more. I don't know how many he had. But maybe he's distributing them, I don't know, to different events or something. But point is I'm not going to sell mine. I'm going to open it. I'm going to play it. I am really into the first game. Or actually, technically, this is the third game because there was a Gun World originally. Anyway, I won't go on and on about that. But show exclusives, clearly if you're a vendor or you have early access, that is awesome, right? So if you're not a vendor and you have VIP access, which means that you're like going to have a panel or you're somebody that's just sort of whatever, I don't know, in the gaming community, then yeah, that means you get to go there early and you get to check things out. Well, anyway, my lazy ass, I don't get there until like 30 minutes before the show opens, even on Sunday when it opened at 10. Another con would be sort of a con in itself, and it has to do with thieves. And I had 2 different experiences that I know of, all right? And let me explain this too. Again, a lot of this applies to running a booth by yourself, So that's sort of on me. I mean, like, if I had help the whole time, things would be a little different, But I am not a retail store. I don't sell crap. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a store where I'm selling this stuff. So I don't have employees, you know what I mean? So anyway, I set up my booth a certain way. I set it up so from the right side over, it's all large items, systems, the computer, display cases, that kind of stuff, all on the right side. From the left all the way back, it's all small crap, the cartridges, all that stuff. So you can keep an eye on the left side. Well, what happens is, like on Saturday, you get so many people around your booth, like standing room only, literally. So you're just stuck there watching your smaller items and watching people just dig through, and meanwhile, someone over here might ask a question and they just have a long question. I'm looking for this game. I'm looking for this game. Do you have this? How about this? blah, 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 right? Or whatever. They'll just start asking questions, which is fine, you know? But as I'm talking to them, I have to like keep looking back over. And it's impossible to keep track of everything. Well, day one, I noticed a game went missing. And it was a $35 game. It wasn't crazy. But it was weird because I actually kind of suspected somebody, but it's someone who I don't know their name, just someone I saw throughout the day, both Saturday and Sunday. And he just was weird. He just had like a kind of a suspicious, I don't know, like he was just strange. And so he mentioned this game, left, and then maybe an hour later the game was gone. And I'm like, huh, that was strange. I wonder if that was that guy. But, you know, I can't accuse someone of stealing. So it was like, all right, I'm going to tighten up my setup here. So I tightened it up so everything was more in view. I also made it a point to stand closer. Well, the next day, this was the really crazy thing that happened, is that I'm talking to someone on my left side where all the small stuff is. And you have to remember on the right side, I've got all my systems. So that, for this trip, I sold a lot of systems. I sold 3 PS1s, I don't know, whatever. I sold a bunch of crap. I had 2 Atari 2600s. One was a 6-switch, one was a 4-switch. They all came with joysticks and paddles and all the hookups. Everything was tested, you know what I mean? Well, the 2600 4-switch sold on Saturday. So all I had left was that 6-switch, and it was in good shape. Like, it's a nice system. So it's sitting there, and this kid, who's like 10, 11, something like that, goes over to the system, and he's like messing with it and kind of like checking out the controllers. And I saw him, but I was talking to someone on my left, right? And I just saw him over there. I go, hey, if you're interested in that, it does come with all those controllers, you know? And he's like, okay, cool. I'm just checking it out. I'm like, great. So I keep talking to this guy over here. And as I'm talking to this guy, I just glance over and check on this kid. So I glanced over, and he's still messing with the system. And I'm like, hey, man, if you're interested or something or have any questions, just holler at me, okay? And he's like, yeah, okay. So I keep talking to my, whoever this guy is over here about questions about games. And anyway, maybe 15 seconds go by, and I throw a glance back over. And as I look back over, my 6-switch Atari is now a 4-switch Atari 2600. And I notice it right away. I mean, it's like, wait, what? That's not my system. And the kid's standing there. So I just kind of walk directly over to this kid. And I'm like, and as I look, he starts fidgeting below the table. And I just said, did you switch the systems? And he's like, what? I go, did you just switch the systems, man? And he pulled out, like he did this. I just kind of saw his hand under the table. He pulls out my Atari 2600 from under, from his bag, basically, his Gaming Expo bag. And he pulls it out. He's like, no, I'm not switching it. I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I just wanted to look at it for a second. And he points to the cartridge slot. And he's like, I thought it was weird. I thought I saw some chips in here. And I'm like, dude, put it back. He puts it back, takes his, and he basically not runs, but briskly walks out directly, beeline to the exit. Now, meanwhile, my table swarms with people, so I can't even do anything. Now, in hindsight, I don't know, maybe I should have yelled, security! I don't know. I really don't know what I should have done. He was only 10, 11, 12, maybe 12. But he went straight to the exit. So I'm like, that was screwed up, dude. I was wondering if I would see him again, and I would have then said something to somebody. I heard other stories of things that happened at the show, but they're not really my stories. I don't want to go off on them. But basically, man, people are good at running this kind of stuff. I can't believe it was a little kid, though. That blew my mind. So dealing with thieves is a definite con of this, but I think all retail, you deal with that. That's just something that happens. You have to be aware, and it's hard if it's just you running a booth. So anyway, there's 3 pros and cons of being a vendor. But in general, let me just say this. The expo and being a vendor is really cool. Another drawback, which I'll say is sort of a con, but whatever, is when I was talking about making money, you do pay, clearly, for the booth. Well, 2 years ago, the last time I was a vendor there, the booth was $300 and that's a half booth, I think. So you get 3 big tables. And it was $300, included electricity. Now, okay, actually it was $325 with a parking spot. Now it's $450 for the same booth with a parking spot and no power. So if you want power, you have to pay the convention center another $115, right? So the power thing at all my previous booths, I loved setting up little CRTs and having an N64 running and a Super Nintendo or whatever, and just having everything demoed out, you know? And that was something that I really liked having. So this year I didn't have that. So that was kind of annoying. The other thing is, because I'm 2 hours away, I got to pay for hotel and meals. So my hotel was like $240 or whatever with tax. And yeah, anyway, gas, time, all that stuff. I definitely made money, but it was so much work. So I think that's my last year as an expo vendor. I might still do Cowlitz because it's closer. That's closer to my house, and the booth prices aren't too crazy. Also, you can get a half booth or a single table at Retro Gaming Expo. I did that 1 year, and I actually did pretty good. I made use of my space pretty, I did a good job, but man, like keeping an eye on everything was crazy. Also, I forgot to say I had 2 bins on the floor, maybe 3 bins. Genesis games, they were sports only. PS2 games, mostly sports. And then a big thing of peripherals, all kinds of controllers. NES zappers, Sega Genesis controllers, Xbox power supplies, all that stuff. And they were completely out of view. I mean, for all I know, people were just taking stuff left and right from that. I have no clue. So it sucks. It's like you kind of just hope that people are being honest, And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so I've had a smaller booth in the past, but I think that the larger booth is much more, cost effective in that sense, because you get 3 tables instead of 1. So anyway, next year, I think that what's going to happen is that I'm going to go as a attendee, and PRGE, because I've gone so many times, extended a VIP pass to me, which is amazing. So I'm going to go and check it out early. Also, they moved it to the summer. It's going to be in August now, which is totally different. So anyway, I'm excited to go. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with all this crap. I'm thinking maybe eventually I'll put it up on Etsy or something. I've thought about building like a little e-commerce site on a website and trying to just sell stuff that way. But other than that, any kind of local expo is where I'll probably have it. The Portland Retro Gaming Expo is just too big for somebody like me who's just a collector trying to kind of get rid of my own stuff. Now, with all that said, it's an awesome experience, so go do it if you're up for it. And sign up now, because the booths are already they're already at 50% capacity. They're selling them out. So again, I think I touched on the biggest con where I couldn't really walk around too. That sucks, man. I didn't get to go explore anything. But there you go, guys. That's my vendor experience at PRGE. It's an awesome show. That's all I can say. Until next time, I hope you guys keep that shit retro by going to your local gaming conventions later on.